music, brother. It is great to see you in your element. We usually have seen each other either at Departure or Canadian Music Week, where you're my boss.
Wow,
Yeah,
easy, easy.
it's true. You're my boss. You're the one organizing and making sure that, everything goes smoothly for me when I've got a host in the rooms that I'm in. And I've always been appreciative of you, man, for that.
You make the
You
job
know,
easy, though. I got to tell you, because as you know, I'm responsible for multiple people doing multiple things, but I never have to worry about Rudy Blair. He shows up, he delivers, and so you make my job so much easier.
brother, thank you so much. How you doing, man? I keep seeing
Good.
all these things you're doing with podcasts and radio shows, and
Yeah,
you do a lot, man.
yeah. I guess first of all, it's 10 years of our TV show BS Live Rocks for your TV Niagara here on Koja Coast. So Bobby and I have done it for obviously 9 years, this year being the 10th. And it's been, it's had its challenges because we went through COVID and
Yep.
you couldn't have people in the TV studio and you're doing everything by Zoom, which we're doing this now, but that's not because of COVID. But yeah, it's been a fun venture and we got a great year lined up. And it's always great to support independent bands and cover bands, anybody in the,
Yes.
the entertainment space. So that's going on. Still have radio, some AM radio, some FM radio. And I do Hot Tracks, which is all part of the Canadian Indie Country Countdown. So independent country music, I love country as well. So doing that, and yeah, apparently wrote a book over the last couple of years that finally, got to Amazon. Lo and behold, so there we go.
We're gonna get to that book in a moment, but one thing I do want to get to is something you just said. Interviewing independent artists. I was on Toronto Mike just recently.
Love it.
First time on the
Yeah, Mike's
show.
great.
Yeah, we had a great conversation. And it's been basically, this is my 10th anniversary as an independent. One of the things I talked about was the importance of interviewing and using your platform for independent artists. Can you talk a little bit about that, please? Because I think
Yeah,
more people like yourselves and myself, more people need to be doing this because a lot of people just won't, no, I want to talk to just the stars. No, you got to
no,
start from day one to help them
right.
become stars.
Well, and the other thing too, though, Rudy, is that I don't know, Steven Tyler. There's a billion interviews with Steven Tyler, and whether you do an interview or I do an interview, really is going to make a difference in Steven Tyler's life. Like it's really
Right.
not. I mean, we like to think it would, but probably doesn't. But to an independent artist coming up, I always say get yourself a good publicist, somebody that can get your promo out there, get your assets out there. People can see your videos, which are very important, by the way, for an independent artist to have videos. So optically, people can see what you're like, not only look like, but just the visuals of your band and your songs. But the artist got to show up, man, because you know that sometimes it's tough to get them to have those conversations. And really, that is what's going to kind of build their career. Again, they have websites, they have socials, and the more things that they can share and people can learn about them, the more they go to Spotify or wherever they're going to get their music and listen to them. And I've had so many artists say to me, and I'm kind of like you, I go, all right, we're going to spend 10 minutes, have a conversation about a brand new single, put it on a show, see how it goes. But the feedback that they get from that is incredible. And they go, wow, I didn't think that many people listened or cared, or they're now kind of coming to my show or buying my merch, or I saw on, my streaming numbers went up, or whatever it might be. So I think it's really important. I like interviewing the stars like you do, because
Yeah.
there's nostalgia in that and there's something that is really special to the person doing the interview. But as far as the independence, really, I love it, but really they get so much out of it. I think more people should spend more time doing it, and more artists should go and make sure they reach out to people like yourself and say, hey, I want to have a conversation, I want to share my story.
Amen to that. So you mentioned about people like Steven Tyler. You've done something that I've had many people ask me to do. I just haven't formulated it in my head, but you finally did it, my friend, because what we do, we chronicle music history
Right.
when we do these interviews. You finally did it in print. What did you just do, my friend?
Okay, so it's funny because it started about 2 years ago, and I said I want to write a book. I don't know, I just want to write a book. I guess there was something about writing a book. So I said, what am I going to write a book about? A true story. My friend Metal Mike, who had a podcast called the 80s Glam Metal Cast. So all of a sudden, he releases a book. And I call him, I go, dude, what'd you do? Yeah, I took the interviews, I kind of summarized them, did this, did that, and I wrote a book. On the phone, I said, I'm copying this. I'm the exact same idea. I mean, different interviews, obviously, different stories. I said, but I'm doing this. He's like, awesome, dude. You need to. Sat down on a computer. I went through these interviews happened, I guess. They're pretty current, like from 20, I don't know, 17 to now. Okay. So they're not going back to the 90s or early 2000s. A couple of points. As you know, Rudy, when you interview these artists a little bit later in their career, a lot easier to talk to. You
Yes.
know, there's no arrogance. They have nothing to prove, so they're a lot more open in conversation. Okay, so that's so you get good interviews, right? Because you're
Mhm.
dealing with people that don't have any more ego. So I started going through the interviews, and I did this old school, man. I would like listen to it on one computer, and then I'd start typing. But as you know, when you interview people, just like you're talking to me, people go off topic. So you ask them a
Yeah.
question, topic, they're off topic, like I am now. You come back to topic. So I kind of edited that myself. So there's a disclaimer at the beginning of the book that says, listen, this is my recollection and the best conversation we had. It kind of goes like this. And I felt like, okay, the reader's going to get the gist of who, you know, what the story's all about, whether it's a song, an album, a tour, whatever. And at the end of every entry, I put the QR code so you could listen to the entire podcast. So if you weren't clear about the conversation or you want to learn more, or you really like the artist, you would go, okay, Dean Castronovo, I like Journey, I like drummers. I'm going to listen to this podcast. So then you get the full story. So it kind of just started out with me chronicling like these interviews and starting that way. But I'm going to tell you this too. I did it for a while and then I stopped because, like everything else, just like when you put out a record, you start with something, you go, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think it sucks. So you shelve it. A couple months go by, you come back and you're like, okay, you're going to keep writing. And this was literally a Word document. That's all it was. And I said, you know what? I don't care if I publish this. I don't care if it goes to Amazon. It'll be a PDF. It's for me. Who's going to read it anyway? So I'm going to circle what happened recently. So go through the winter, come to the spring. A girl that I dated at one time comes back into town. She's a writer. She does a lot of different things, but she works with publishing books and with people who are trying to write their story. So we reconnect and we sat down and she goes, well, what are you trying to do? So I explained it. So she came up with the vision of what the book would look like. And then like with the graphics and kind of the imaging and all that. And then she had the idea, it wasn't me, to put the QR code. And so she kind of, she made me feel like I can do this. Like we're going to get to the finish line. And so it went from, you know, guns ablazing to like, I quit to, okay, here's a little bit more to like, screw this shit to like, this May I went, that's it. And then my deadline was September 6th because it was my 56th birthday. I said, I want that date for it to come out. And that's when it came out. And so that was kind of the journey, if you will. I use Dean Castronovo, see what journey, but that's the journey to get there. And I think there's 20, is there 28 or 29 entries? And I've got like you, thousands of interviews. So like, it's like but it's a long process. So I could only do so much.
So, what is the book exactly called, and who are some of those people on that list in the book?
Right. So it's called After the Encore. There it is right there. And we came up with the name, I think, just over dinner sometimes saying, I mean, after the encore, that kind of sounds neat. The encore's over. Now here's the story of the show or whatnot. So a lot of great, Rick Springfield was one of my favorites. And as you know, Rudy, you need to rely on key people in the music business to hook you up with these interviews because you're not going to get an interview with Journey or Rick Springfield or a lot of these people without your publicist, whether it's Eric Alper, whether it's Jody Best out in LA, whatever it is. And so, yeah, I mean, Rick Springfield was one of my favorites. A lot of drummers because I'm a drummer. Liberty DeVito from Billy Joel, you know, all the early albums, and loved his drumming. Was influential on me being a drummer. And so, you know, a lot of the stories just came from those type of people. A lot of Canadians, a lot of like, you know, Coney Hatch, Harry Hess from Harem Scarum. I know you know these people. Erica M from Much Music, Christopher Ward from Much Music. So it kind of goes all over, not just artists, but people in the music space. So yeah, it was just fun to put together.
Now, I know I've talked about this a lot personally, but what is it like for you when you interview somebody, um, and like Rick Springfield, okay? Growing up, knowing that, now mind you, I'm a little bit older than you, but maybe watching his cartoon as a kid or seeing him on television or on a soap opera or
Right.
whatever, watching him, and then years later, he's sitting right in front of you and you're doing these
Right.
interviews.
Right.
Does it like me, does it click in your head going, holy jeez,
Yeah,
I'm
it does.
actually speaking with, and
Well,
you go back to those memories?
yeah, it's funny, and I'm glad you brought up Rick because the story runs deep with Rick because I dated the girl in high school who loved Rick's, and here I was going, "What do you mean about what's wrong with me?" You know, because he had just come out early with his early albums, and so the connection with Rick and Jesse's Girl and all those great songs and that, and then years later in the 2000s, I went to Las Vegas to see Rick Springfield. He was in it was at the MGM. I remember, I can't remember what the play was called, but he was like the star of it. Okay. And I still had the cup from it, and it's in my office here. And I ended up during the interview showing him and saying, "Do you remember it called Effects Alive?" And he's like, "Where did you?" I said, "I was in Vegas to see this show." And I had brought this girl who recently left her husband and took her to Vegas. So you get the stories, right? Now you're talking about this connection and all that. And then I saw Rick, I don't know if it was 5 or 6 years ago or whatever it was, and told him that story. And I had a picture with him and I, like from 5, 6 years ago. So to talk to him again, and this is a true story too. I had tickets to see him play at the casino. That's why I was doing the interview. And I got rid of them because I had a travel commitment. So I wasn't going to be here. So at the end of the interview, I said to Rick, I go, "Listen, I'd love to say hello, but I can't be at the show. I have my tickets and I got rid of them." And he says to me, "I think I got somebody who can hook you up." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Absolutely." He goes, "Go to the box office." And I showed up the box office. I got like a backstage pass. I got, my buddy and I took a buddy drummer of mine, Alan. We went and hung out with Rick backstage and chatted there, took some photos. And so it was like kind of a full circle of like high school years to like, into my
Yeah.
30s to like now in my 50s, and couldn't be a nicer guy too. Just super awesome, no arrogance at all, and still giving it, man. He looks great. He's like in his, what, he's 70 or 72 or something. So it's
Yeah.
crazy.
I think yeah, 71, 72, something
Yeah.
like that. But I mean, he's got the shirt off.
Oh yeah.
He's still playing. He's still looking good.
Yeah.
Um, in your book, is there any? And you're always a positive guy, but you know as well as I do. Sometimes our interviews, there could be a
Tension.
not a great experience.
Hmm.
It can happen no matter how good we are. Do we have some of that in the book?
Well, it's funny because I was going through some of the people in the book, and there was no bad interviews, but I will tell you there were some challenges.
Yes.
Um, John Anderson was a bit of a challenge, and yes, but that's not because it was a bad interview. I just think his personality, and he's a little bit quirky, and we had an issue with our connection a little bit. So there was a lot of kind of, and not only that, Yes wasn't my, like, I wasn't listening to a lot of Yes, like a couple of songs that made the radio, but that was about it. So there was a bit of kind of awkwardness, I guess, in that conversation. But most of the people one of the Black Crows, he had left the Black Crows a number of years ago, wrote a book. And when I chatted with him, he blew my mind how amazingly in depth he got about his life, about almost committing suicide on the road when they have a number one album. Like so many stories that people share with you. But bad experience, not really bad experiences. There were a couple like, you're going to interview some people. There's just not going to be a connection. It's going to be in and out. You get 10 minutes, answer your question, especially if they're doing multiple interviews promoting a tour, an album. But when you get the conversations with people like Liberty DeVito, who just somebody hooked me up with him, who actually knew him out of LA, it was just kind of like a chill conversation. He's got nothing going on at the time. This is just during COVID, and he's like at home going, "Yeah, I'll talk about the early Billy Joel albums. Let me tell you about Billy." So, but no, I would say they were all very positive. Some obviously better than others, but nothing I went, well, because if they weren't that positive, I would not put them in the book. How's that?
You're a great interviewer. Do you think part of that is because you a help people be comfortable, but two, they trust you, which is so important in interviews?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, you have to be you and your personality. And I am what I am, just like you do a great job with being who you are. And I think too many people who interview people have this, I don't know what it is. They're just they come across different than their real person. And I think when people see that you're genuine and when you're asking questions from the heart and you're kind of like you want to know the story, like you have some knowledge of their career or their songs or something, and you start getting into all that. Like when I was talking to Dean from Journey, I mean, I've loved Journey. I play Journey, and I'm going, wait a minute. dude, like, we got to talk about this. And it's like so cool. Like this guy shared these stories. And as you know, Dean didn't come over to Canada to play when Journey toured here last year, I guess it was. And so Dean got me into the show, and I'm in like a box. I was actually in a box seat watching the show while his drum tech was playing, and I was sending Dean video and texts of, he's going, oh, he's killing it, man, because he couldn't get into the country. And anyway, but so to have those connections and to get them, but you don't get that with everybody, obviously, right? Some people are just all business, and other people, like, I still chat with some people, and they're still cool with answering you. Joey Allen from Warrant, I love Warrant. Grew up, he got Bobby and I into the Warrant show at where the heck was it, in Buffalo? What was it? Taste of Buffalo, no, like Erie County Fair
Mhm.
last year. And Warren was playing. I threw him a text. He's like, dude, got you. Come backstage, have some drinks, hang out. And we did. And it was just like an awesome time. So I don't know what the key is other than just be you, man. That's it.
Was there ever in the book, is there an artist that you were extreme? I mean, as you said, thousands upon thousands of interviews. There's always maybe one or two that before you do it, you're very nervous about. Is there somebody in the book that you were nervous about interviewing, but then it, all came together?
Actually, funny I say, or you say that, because Erica M, and maybe you've talked to Erica, and I like Erica. Just different vibes sometimes, and not in a bad way,
No.
but she's a powerful female that walked into a space back in the 80s at Much Music. And I always had this, and when we started chatting, I felt like that, by the way, that was done for TV, her interview. So it's in the book, but it was done for TV, not radio. And so I was with her, and we were in the same room, and I was kind of like a little bit intimidated at first, but then, she's a sweet person. She's got a
Yeah.
great story. So at the end, I felt a relief going, okay, I didn't know how this is, because, I saw her live at a show. She was actually doing spoken word and opening up for Glass Tiger. And I might have told you this story too. But what's interesting is I did the interview with Glass Tiger first, and she was in the hallway, and she came up to me and said, do you mind if I watch while you do the interview? And I'm thinking, oh shit, right?
Pressure.
Yeah, and you're going, oh, like, yeah, sure. If you, and she was standing behind a wall, and she just kind of peeked out, like kind of like, so she would be like not like right there, right? And, and so it was intimidating. And then when I spoke to her again at the beginning, I was a little intimidated, I think. And I don't know if that's the right word, but after a while, I was like, she's a doll, right? And yeah, very smart woman and done very well.
But you just pointed something out, and that's something that we as interviewers always have to deal with. And that is because when you have somebody like Erica M., who, as you said, is a wonderful person, but when she ends up speaking to people who A, don't do their homework, and B, want to crap on her,
Mm,
she's going to be very,
right.
defensive. And it's
Absolutely.
not easy all the time to break those walls down. You are
Right.
very good at that, knowing that sometimes when you're going into these things,
Right.
those are the things that you have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great example though, that just sometimes you just got to kind of be you and power through, right? Like I
Yeah.
knew that I have enough personality to be fun. Hopefully my questions were intelligent enough and that we could engage in conversation, because interviews really, as you know, are they're conversations you're having about whether it's an doesn't matter what it's about, tour, songs, people's lives, it doesn't matter, right? So trying to make them feel comfortable and all that. And I think we finally got there with that. I want to point out somebody else, because it's looking through my list of people here. Rick Emmett. So the Rick Emmett interview was, and I know you've talked to Rick, and but it was in person for TV, and it was in a back room at Mississauga Bowl. He was playing showed with Sean Kelly and this whole thing with Triumph, because he released an album called Diamonds,
Yes.
and so I sat in a room with Rick, and I wasn't sure what to expect. So I'm outside, I come in, and you might know this because you probably know him better than I do, but I walk in and he's like, what's going on? Come on in. I'm going, like, because I'm into it. Come on, it's Triumph, man. Like the voice of Triumph, and one of the voices anyway. And I was like, oh, this guy's pretty cool, right? And but even so, like you just felt like, hey, you're in rock royalty here space, so you're kind of quiet. And then we sat down at this couch. He puts his arm around me and he's going, "What's going on?" And you're like, so right away, there's this. Okay, this is going to be a fun conversation. And in that same time, I did an interview with Sean Kelly because he had written some books. Of course, he plays with Lee Aaron and Coney Hatch and bands like that. And Sean sat beside me, and we start this for tape for TV. And Rick comes flying in over the couch. He's like, "Hi guys," and I'm going like, "Whoa, okay." But so that was unexpected, but very fun, you know. So, but yeah, at first walking down the hallway, I'm like, "Man, this is Rick Emmett. I'm going to go talk to," and but it went great.
That's the thing I love about being past that velvet rope, man. Being able to see those
Those, yeah.
experiences that will never happen again. How proud are you of this book? And also, your biggest critic, what does your daughter think of the book?
Well, my daughter doesn't know any of the artists because she's only 25, so so she really can't fact check much. Yeah, I mean, she saw the frustrations over 2 years of trying to make it happen, and even when it got to the point of getting to print, I didn't realize all of the complexities to get something, published, which was a lot different than I thought. And so she saw the up and downs, right? But when it came out and when I got it in my hand, and I was like, wow, I think she was like, that's awesome. And I think she went through it, and she probably didn't read it, obviously, all of it, but she read enough of it and saw kind of the effort that was put forth in that. And she was like, yeah, she was like, then she posted on her social. My dad wrote a book, and she was all happy with that kind of, so it was fun. I don't know. I say this, I don't know if I would do it again, although I have two more books coming out, but I need to explain that they're not like this. They're kind of like much smaller, and they're kind of a spin-off of this book, more for artists,
Mhm.
so they're kind of like, actually, I can show you. I have the PDF here. See, there you go. This is the book that's going to go to print. But anyway, it's called Before the Spotlight. So it's taking some of the lessons from the interviews of these world-class artists that are trying to help other artists understand, because sometimes people can't get out of their own head and understand, what they need to do to get further in their career. So that's kind of what that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
So
I
that's
love
gonna
that.
that's
And,
coming
and
out.
what are
And
you most proud of this book for yourself?
that's done. I guess that I took something that was sitting in my mind that I really wanted to accomplish, and it finally happened. So I guess that's the only
Yeah.
thing I can say, is that you bring it to the finish line, and it's not about perfection, and there's probably mistakes in it, and someone's probably going to fact check something, even though we hired fact checkers and everything. But there's always something where you're going to go, oh, that's not right, or that should have been this. But at the end of the day, being done is better than being perfect. And that's kind of how I look at it. You can, the record and music industry, you could sit there and marinate on an album or a song for years and not do anything because you don't feel like it's exactly what you want out of it. But I think at some point you got to say, you know what? And I was there. Trust me. I went through like 4 or 5 edits. I said to my daughter, that's it. Like, if something's wrong, it's wrong. I mean, I don't know, because I'm done with looking at this thing. So I think that having the fact that in my mind that, it's better done than it is being absolutely perfect, because it never will be. So
Yeah, no, we're not perfect, but we've had fun. We've had a
yeah,
lot of fun. Look, my last question is if you and I can jump into the hot tub time machine and go back to young you listening to Triumph and Rick and all the other great stars, what would you like to tell young you, knowing your experiences and even better because you've had a chance to speak with these legends? What would you like to tell young you?
I guess I realized through the stories that the artists would tell me, the lessons of perseverance, the lessons that nothing's perfect, the lessons of you got to find the right people in your life to help you along the way. Because every artist says to me, yeah, I'm a good songwriter. Yeah, I can play guitar and sing, but if I didn't have the right people around me, whether it's the right band, the right group of songwriters, and example, Brian Adams isn't in the book, but you and I were with Brian this May at Departure, and he made a comment to me about Jimmy Valance, just saying like, man, like he really helped me, write the songs I had to write and become part of my team. And I think just the songwriters and like, I guess my point is you can't do it on your own, right? You need a
Yeah.
team of people, and you need a team of people like in your life. Doesn't matter what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to get interviews and you need a publicist to help you somewhere, or you need, someone to get you into a TIFF or wherever you might have to go and be on a like you need people to be in your corner. And I think I always say that to my daughter, meet the right people. I know you don't know they're the right people, but try to find people that inspire you, that you learn from, and kind of learn to work with them, and they'll help you along the way if they like you, right? So I guess that would, if that makes any sense, that's kind of what I would tell myself. And
It does, because you've helped me a lot, man, throughout this whole CMW departure experience. So, man, I am so happy for you. Congratulations on having this book, especially because we're going into the holiday season. So I
yeah,
think it would be a very cool thing to put under the
yeah,
tree
I think
to
so.
give to a music enthusiast.
Yeah. 16.99 on Amazon.ca. I can tell you that it's not very expensive. I mean, I don't think it is. I got my
Fantastic.
royalty check. It's not, like it's okay, but it's not that bad, or that big rather. So
I love it, man. Look, hopefully we'll see each other before departure next
yeah,
year, but either way, man, love you. Thank
yeah,
you.
you too, man.
Congrats. And just keep doing what you're doing, man, because you are what we need for this industry.
Yeah, and so are you, my friend. I love you and I follow you and I appreciate you, and you do great work and you're a hard worker, and you all the things that we talked about, right? Like you know how to make things happen and you make them happen. So good for you.